Under the stormy lights of the Labour stage, where promises meet exposure, a shocking scene unfolds. Senior Labour MPs, once the very backbone of Keir Starmer's leadership, are now secretly plotting an internal strike. A move that threatens his seat and shatters the party's vow of no new taxes. And as tensions rise, reports emerge that Chancellor Rachel Reeves is weighing fresh revenue measures, a potential breach of the very manifesto Labour stood on. At the heart of the clash, burning questions erupt. Is this a plot to unseat Starmer, or the first act of a reformist coup disguised as fiscal responsibility? At what price will voters have to pay? This is the turning point. Watch the clip. Before starting, subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Dawn and Neeson. Now, Sir Keir Starmer's premiership could be under threat as Labour MPs are reportedly plotting against his leadership. This all comes despite the Prime Minister's recent efforts to engage more with his colleagues behind closed doors. Elsewhere, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is set to announce a stealth tax raid on retirement savings in her upcoming budget. Experts warn it could reduce the size of pension pots and cut net income. Oh dear lordy. Joining us now is political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. A plot to oust the Prime Minister. What do you make of this one?
Good to see you too, Dawn. I mean, the first thing I'd say is that when you have a parliamentary party of over 400 MPs, there are always going to be people who aren't happy with the direction the government's taking. There's always going to be discontent, and there are always going to be people, particularly in the Labour Party, on the left of the Labour Party, who don't want to see the Prime Minister succeed because actually they believe something completely different. You know, these are the people who have blocked the government's attempts to cut welfare, which absolutely needs to happen. And I think it's really important, actually, that Labour MPs get behind the Prime Minister because he has enough hassle dealing with everybody else who's on his back. So they should get behind him and support what the government's trying to do in very, very difficult circumstances.
Haven't they learned anything from what happened to the Conservative Party? I mean, the amount of infighting saw them actually fall from grace and probably will never get back looking at the current polls. But haven't Labour learned anything from that? I mean, you know, if they're not united, they are not going to win the next election, are they?
Precisely. And it's a fantasy that if Labour just ditched Keir Starmer and found another leader, that the public would suddenly love them. I mean, that's just not going to happen. This is doomed to be an unpopular government for all sorts of reasons, partly of their own making and partly because of the inheritance they've been left. But just chucking in a different leader is not going to help. And actually, if they change leader, because of the way leadership elections work in the Labour Party and because of the nature of the membership, you will end up with someone more left-wing than Keir Starmer, and I think less competent. I think, is he perfect? Absolutely not. Have they had a good first 18 months in government? No, they have not. And I've said on this channel, on your show before, Dawn, I think they've made all sorts of mistakes. But actually, I think he's the person who's best placed to carry on leading the Labour Party in the country.
And he's not even here. He's on a jolly at COP30 trying to save the planet or something or other.
No, it's really important that, Dawn, it's really important that the Prime Minister, whoever he or she is, from whichever party, is representing us on the world stage. COP is an annual event. It's only a couple of days out of his diary. And it is important that we show leadership on climate change. Now, you can agree or disagree with the specific policies that Ed Miliband, for example, is pursuing. But fundamentally, we need to take a leadership role on climate change. And I think it's a very important signal that Keir Starmer's there in Brazil.
Fundamentally, though, surely it's more important to him to face up to the headlines today. Labour MPs plotting to oust Starmer. Lisa Nandy must face new sleaze probe over donor cash.
No, because that's
the migrant story.
That would be so. On the party political point, that would be him being inward looking and being distracted by things that don't matter. Migration, yes, migration extremely important, and the economy extremely important. And those are the two things the government really needs to get to grips with. We've got budget in 2.5 weeks' time that's going to be massively consequential for everybody in this country. That's the priority over the next few weeks. And actually, that's going to be a really difficult thing to get through because it looks like they're going to break their manifesto pledge. But being distracted by infighting and what Lisa Nandy has done or what such and such MP is saying. And I mean, by the way, as for Lucy Powell, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, I'm not surprised whatsoever that she is taking the opportunity with her new role to stir the pot, to try and make a name for herself, and frankly to be an attention seeker, because that's exactly how she's always behaved. This is classic left of the Labour Party. They need to be ignored, and the government should just crack on and get on with the job.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Lucy Powell. I mean, she certainly is. He's not a fan of the Prime Minister, is she? She's wasted no time in having a go at him. Let's try another one then. What about David Lammy and the scandal of prisoners being released and running around our street? I mean, still.
That's not the Prime Minister's job. That's David Lammy's job.
Huh?
So
he's in charge of David. He's literally his boss.
No, yeah, of course, Dawn, but as you know, in any organisation, the chief executive is the overall leader, but you have other people, you delegate to other people to get the job done. That's David Lammy's job. David Lammy is in, as far as I'm aware, in London, in the UK, doing his job, trying to get to grips with that. By the way, you're not going to catch me defending him for his terrible presentation.
No, yeah, by the way, when you say doing his job,
he was dire. He was absolutely dire. But if you're looking at the overall situation in our prisons, he's absolutely right to say that it's a mess left by the Tories. But that excuse isn't going to wash forever. He needs to get to grips with things.
Yeah, OK, and the big boss needs to get to grips with things at all, because otherwise the Labour Party have no chance. Let's be honest here, Andy. The Labour Party have no chance of winning another general election with Keir Starmer in charge. They need a fresh face to lead the party, surely.
Fresh face to lead the Labour Party? I really don't think so. I don't think that's what... I know how unpopular Keir Starmer is, but I don't think that's what the country wants. Nobody is crying out for... I think he'd do a good job, but nobody's crying out for Wes Streeting to be the next Prime Minister. Nobody's crying out for Ed Miliband, certainly, to be the next Prime Minister, or, whoever else they decide upon. So it's all well and good saying, well, we should just chop and change. But that's what the Tories did time and time again. Didn't do them any good. Being united, sticking together and sticking with a plan is really important. And Starmer needs to...
But the trouble with that, Andy, is they're not sticking together. There is this plot, and Lucy Powell's got an axe to grind for sure. Probably so has Angela Rayner. But they're not sticking together. There's huge infighting within the party.
I don't disagree, but you're not going to be able to stop. This is the perennial problem. You're not going to be able to stop the left of the Labour Party being attention seekers, wanting to spend money infinitely as if it's running water. That's just the way they have always behaved and will continue to behave. And the only way to deal with them is to be really focused on what you're trying to achieve in the real world, under the real world constraints that governments have. And forget the left. They're always going to behave like this. Crack on, bulldoze through. And, if you need to... I was really irritated to see them restoring the whip to 4 rebel Labour MPs earlier this week who voted against welfare cuts. We don't need them. Forget about them. We've got 410 Labour MPs. If we lose 4 because they can't vote on a key piece of government policy in favour of the Prime Minister, then we should get rid of them and crack on.
Yeah, there were over 100 rebels in that particular debate though as well, weren't there? So I don't think it got the full support of all 400. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. That's our political commentator, Andy Williams.
Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.